I looking directly into the camera or am I looking at you, Theo?
Directly to the camera.
You're not putting your black magic screen.
I can't flip it all the way, that's why. This is
Oh, no. Oh, I remember you had that thing, that screen.
Huh?
Where's your screen?
My mom, I sold it.
Oh.
It was dropped. So I sold it. And then Gio, whoever he hired it out to, spoiled it. So Gio had to buy another one. We're ready? So, what, honey? My father will tell you what YouTube channel or whatever to log in to check out this thing, and you can be commenting for live. Yeah. Are you guys ready?
That you can be commenting for lies.
So you guys are recording from that side, eh? We're good?
Hi. Hello. My name is Lunyanshi.
You ready? Okay. In 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile and action.
Hello. My name is Lunyanshi and I am a human capital specialist. What is human capital, you might ask? And this is pretty much just people. Human resource, the best resource we have is actually people. And I've grown an interest in human capital and specializing in this particular field because I feel like if an organization cares about how their human capital actually is functioning from when they enter the building, all the roles that they engage in, and actually after they leave into the lives that they're living, then they can bring more into their actual organization. So human capital really centers around shaping the relationship between management and their employees, making sure that it is a win-win situation between what employees are bringing to the table and what management is also bringing to the table. That way we create a healthy environment where people can thrive, organizations can thrive, and ultimately this benefits everybody. It benefits communities, it benefits countries when organizations are run in a healthy way. So I'll just give a little bit of background about myself. I am 30 years old, wife, mother of a 1-year-old, soon to be 2-year-old, and I've been in different roles through my career, but mainly my interest has always been people. So I worked my first job as an intern at Alchemy Women in Leadership, where I was able to work with young girls of different ages, and we were really just centered around teaching leadership skills, helping them to realize their potential as women, but also as capital in the general organization world. I then worked as an intern again in the Human Resources Department at SNACO. This was a really eye-opening role because it helped me to understand really that people are the center of every single organization. We might have different kinds of software, different kinds of machinery, even when you think about places like mines or airports, we've got planes and different things that help the machine run. But ultimately, nothing comes together, nothing works unless the people work. And so that's why my common interest has always just been people in general. So even when I did transition into different roles, so I also worked at Focus Life Assurance and then later moved on to one really long role. I think I was there for 4 years in an NGO called Miracle Life Family Church, and I worked as a communications manager. And in that role, I was able to get onto the public relations side of human capital specialist, just to look at the different ways that the different faces that organizations show people, how to humanize an organization by actually having a voice that speaks not just as a big machine, but as different people, because you speak to different people, and each organization must have different voices that appeal to different audiences and actually just help everyone feel heard. So, with that brief background, today I'm going to talk about managing out. Popularly, managing out is basically about helping people who are in an organization already transition out of an organization. And the most common way that people are managed out is when we realize as an organization that this person is not a good fit. And once you realize that they're not a good fit for however long that they've worked there, you now get into a sequence of actually helping this person smoothly transition out of the organization. But today I'd like to offer a different and a broader perspective to managing out, because I truly believe that managing out begins when a person enters your organization. So from the moment that we actually engage in onboarding people, we are initially starting the process of managing them out of the position that they are hired in, and ultimately managing them out of our organization. So we're going to start from the beginning. When you engage in the hiring process, what are you looking for? That is one important question that you need to ask as an individual that is involved in the onboarding process. So it must be clear, not just to you and your organization, but also to the people that you are trying to get into your organization. Because if I don't truly know, as a person who's applying for a role, if I don't truly know what you're looking for, I will end up applying for this job and I'm a bad fit. Or I might be a perfect fit for this role, but because I don't understand clearly what you're looking for, I may not apply for the job. So we need to, first of all, make sure that when we're hiring, we communicate clearly exactly what we need. And the only way to know exactly what you need is not just to pick up a job description, and specifically even the job description of the person who was in the role, but to actually look at what this role involves. So what problems are we trying to solve with the person that we're trying to hire? Because the person that's coming in is supposed to actually solve problems. So in any role, whatever that role may be, whether you're driving a truck or you're a cook or you're a software developer, whatever role that you play, you are actually in an organization, in a company, to solve a problem. So once we figure out what the problem is, then we know exactly what skills, what characteristics we're looking for in the person that we're trying to hire. Then we create a job description. And once that job description is created, we put this job out for people to come in and actually offer their service, or to apply and see if they're the right fit for the organization. And I know in the hiring process, I've been asked so many different questions. Some of the best interviews or onboarding process steps involve actually getting to know people. Because sometimes you might find that you're trying to hire someone to be, let's say, a video editor. And you find that they're actually very good at directing. So you might be hiring for a particular role, but you end up discovering in conversation and in actually interacting deeply with this person that they offer a different skill that you may not necessarily have been looking for, but you can now account for, because you can see, oh, this person does actually, offer that. So I remember once being part of a panel where we were trying to interview for a communications manager, and we, for some strange reason, we actually picked up on the fact that of the two people who we were interviewing, one was for sure the perfect fit to be a communications manager. And when we looked at the different aspects that the other person brought out, the different things that he explained about the whole process of filming, of producing certain things, we realized he would actually be a good technical fit for a role that we were not even hiring for. And in that state, we actually created a role. So it was a conversation of, okay, so you didn't get the communications manager role, but we would like to offer you a different technical role, because we feel that you present the kind of characteristics that would be really good for someone who is a technical director. So it's in the conversations that you have, it's in looking at the big picture of what problems are we actually trying to solve with this role, that you find that you hire the right people for the right roles. So one question I've always been asked in every single interview, and I've actually asked this of people as well in interviews, is where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then also, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And most of the time, if we're not thinking about managing people out of roles, we look for answers that will answer the question in the direction of the particular role and growing that role. But I would actually challenge that a better approach would be looking at how this person responds in terms of not just personal growth and growing in that particular role, but what areas are they looking to grow in terms of their skill, their capability. Because I might say I'd like to in 5 years be, human resources director. So what are the specific skills that you're trying to grow in this 5 years that would actually help you to get there? Because you're not getting there magically. So what are the things that we're actually trying to grow in you as a person? What are your interest areas of growth? That will be sort of indicators of the fact that not only are you being deliberate about what you're trying to learn, but you also have experience and knowledge of the role. Of course, because you're coming into, let's say for instance, the human resources manager role and not the human resources director, there's this gap. And this gap of growth is what we're actually asking you about. So we're not just trying to find out like what position would you like to be in, but we're actually trying to find out how would you like to grow? How would you like to be managed out of this role that we're actually giving you today or potentially giving you to get into the role that you could potentially be in later, in 5 years. So don't just, ask people the question to get the technical answer, but actually get into the depth of what skills, what capability, what knowledge is this person trying to grow. And then also in regards to managing out, at the hiring process, it's okay to hire people and actually send them not straight into the position permanently and not straight into probation, because usually the probation period could last from 3 to 5 months. But consider actually putting this person on trial. Try the person. A lot of times in a 2-3 week period, you can start to see people's competencies, people's capabilities, what skills they've actually come through, because a lot can be written down on paper. And resumes and CVs these days, there are sites that actually can edit those for you. You can tell them what you want to sell and they will help you figure out how to sell it. So papers and references are not always the most reliable source of information about this person's capabilities. So always think about doing a trial period as an organization. This will actually help not just you figure out that whether this person is the good fit for your organization, but it will also give the person that is potentially coming on board a chance to see, is this actually an organization I want to be a part of? Is this a good fit for me as well as an employee? Because different organizational cultures have different aspects that within the first few weeks, when people are still very heightened and they're trying to give you as much information as they can, that's actually a good time to listen in and pay close attention to what's going on, how things are run, and actually determine, do I actually want to work here? And also as an organization, you get to determine, is this really the right person we want? We know that, they might have the right skills, they might be saying the right things, but culturally, in terms of the organizational culture, are they the right person? I think one of the values, and this might be the wrong example, but there's an airline that actually, I think it's Southwest. One of their values as an organization is humor. So throughout the organization, from the people checking you in, the pilot, the air hostesses, even people who are in baggage claim, everyone throughout the organization is very big on humor, because that's one of the organization's values. So even at the hiring stage, they look for people who appreciate humor, engage in humorous activities, and it's something that they don't lie about, or they don't withhold that information, because they want to make sure that everyone coming in knows that pranks are a common occurrence. They know that we're looking for people who happily engage and brush things off their shoulder when you've been pranked. You're not looking for people to come into the organization and freak out when let's say a joke is made or a prank is made. We actually want people who also value humor. So that's why a trial period is actually really, really important, because it helps both sides determine, is this really the right fit for me? So the next thing that we will talk about is growth. So now you're in the organization, okay? We've decided that this is someone we actually want part of our team. So where do we go from there? So from this step, again, remember I said our aim is actually managing people out. So from this stage, we go into the grow or go mode. So that's grow or go. So when you look at grow or go, is really looking at how people can grow out of not just their positions, but out of the organization. And this is really to say there's so many different roles that are played in different organizations, because just like a human body, there are different things happening. So the arms have their own role, your wrists have their own role to play, and there's so many different things that your whole body is doing that are leading to we have one common purpose. So even in organizations, it's the same. There is one common purpose for the organization, but there are different parts, and different people play different parts. So sometimes there are things happening within the organization that, and I'm just looking at the comments from our live stream just to make sure if there's any questions, we can actually look at that. But we'll have at times towards the end where we actually look at these things in detail, and I'll be able to actually answer your questions. I was talking about the different parts of the organizations and how different players play a role in everything that's going on. So when we talk about grow or go, there are things that are happening within the organization that, one, each person has a role that they're playing. And if I'm hired with the job description of, I'll give a random example, I drive a tractor. So I work at the mine and I drive a tractor. That's my role. So as an individual, when I come into that organization, that should not be my end goal. I should be in the organization to grow. So what are the different areas, what are the different departments that exist within that mine that will allow for growth? And I think for a lot of organizations, we need to actually think about that. Is there a ceiling on growth in your organization? Is there, is the growth linear, or is there actually a cap on how far someone can grow in your organization? So think about the fact that this person drives a truck. But what if they have, not formal interest or formal training, but they're really good at being, and I'm not sure if this is the same industry, but at leading other people, and maybe they could grow into the position of foreman. How do they have, insight into that if they never have an opportunity to actually experience being a foreman? So with Grow or Go, it's about creating opportunities for the people in your organization to actually grow, creating opportunities for them to manage themselves, creating opportunities for them to solve problems, and not just, always offering them solutions. I remember in the role I worked in at Miracle Life, our big thing was always, so there's a problem, and as the employee, I have a problem that needs solving. So when I'm going up to my manager, I'm not going up to my manager to tell them, my manager, here is the problem. So we need a solution for this. That's never something that's acceptable. Because as an employee, you should be thinking and looking for solutions and solving problems. And this isn't to say you should never mention when there's a problem. That's not what I'm saying. So what I'm actually saying is when there is a problem, let's say the soup wasn't ordered for lunch today. Okay, so the soup hasn't been ordered. That problem has come to my attention. I, as the employee, must think of possible solutions. I must ask my peers, what possible solution do you think works in this scenario? And once I've we've cut this down to maybe 2 or 3 different propositions of how we could solve this problem, 2 or 3 different solutions, then we cut down to the top one that we think would be the key. So I would then approach my supervisor and say, okay, this is the problem, but I'd like to suggest this possible solution with these 2 other solutions as, backup in case this one doesn't work. And my manager, then their role is not to just say, scrap that, I'm going to come up with a solution because I'm the manager. That's actually stifling growth. Because as manager, you should then acknowledge the fact that these people have been thinking, because we actually want people to think. So these people have thought of an idea, and now you look at the different pros and the different cons with the suggestion that they brought up. And likely, because the people on the ground are the ones directly experiencing this, they would possibly have a better perception of the right solution. So you didn't just take a problem to your manager or your supervisor. You took the information of the problem with possible solutions, and that actually adds value not just to your role but to your organization, because we're not having managers and supervisors sit for hours trying to come up with solutions. We are actually cutting that time in half or even more, because we're actually going to them with solutions. And I think that adds more value even to their role, because they can focus on things that actually matter. They can focus on coming up with policies that help you have a more wholesome experience in your work, rather than always, being involved with the actual management or the actual micromanagement in most cases of their employees. And also with growing and going, growing or going, growing or going, we want to look at, giving people opportunities to learn new skills. So think about the fact that a video editor in a production house, for instance, always has headsets on, is in front of their screen, and is constantly editing videos. And if you think about environments where we are constantly putting out work, there isn't a lot of time to actually stop and learn. So as supervisors or as managers, as an organization really, you need to be deliberate about creating opportunities and time for the people that work for you. For instance, in this case, the video editor, to actually have time to, maybe even if it's just, half a day, to actually go on the internet, see what new trends are coming up, to actually explore things, and even also just to try out random stuff. Because some of the projects that production houses work on, sometimes, let's say if we work for a bank, our main client is a bank. Most of the work that I will be doing as a video editor is around banking and the services that banks provide. But what if we could create time for video editors to, have an opportunity to think out the box, to actually do something that isn't so monotonous and actually learn new skills. So if we could give a video editor half a day, once a week, to just say, at this time, this is blocked out for you. It's for your skills development. It's for you to actually grow in another skill. Is there anything that you're interested in that you would like to learn? And most times in every role, you will find that people already know some of the skills that they'd like to learn. They know what their interests are, and they would actually be very happy to share those with you for an opportunity to actually have time to do that. And maybe they want to learn animation. So for half a day, once a week, you give them this free time to actually go and learn a new skill. And actually, ultimately, this not just benefits the employee, it also benefits the organization if your employees are constantly growing, because they can give you a better quality of work. They can learn tricks to actually become quicker at production. They can learn how to cut, editing time in half by finding out that there's different kinds of software. I know the people that I've worked with, I have someone who had to learn how to very quickly edit out green screen. But I also had another person who would take a whole day to edit green screen because they just didn't have enough time to research these things, to learn how to do things easier. Even things like, quickly at a click of a button, learning how to actually sync audio with video. All those kinds of things, the information is there. But if people are always here in their head, looking at the same information, always constantly working in the time that they're with you, they can't grow. And so we need to foster an environment that will actually help our employees to learn new skills, to create even just a little bit of time intentionally for them to actually grow. Another thing about growing and going is that employees also need to be kept in the loop about things that pertain to them. So a lot of times, because people are the ones who are growing in a specific role, if they don't have full information about what's going on and what things that affect their role, they will be stagnant. Imagine a team of maintenance workers who only find out on the day of an event, for instance, that we're not having an event online. We're actually going to have it in the building. It's going to actually be happening physically on campus because we could have streamed it live, but now instead we're deciding that we'll actually have the event physically. These people could have come up with a plan 2-4 weeks ago of exactly how they're going to make sure that everything is in place if they had been given enough time. But if they're getting this last minute information in the 11th hour of how the event is going to be run, it doesn't give them enough time and an opportunity to actually innovate. It doesn't give them enough time to actually present you with a maintenance plan that's going to be the best thing for the event, something innovative, something good, something quick. It's really just going to be the bare minimum because you've given them bare minimum quality time. So involve employees at different levels in the information that pertains to their work. Don't just make decisions for them, because you find that the best ideas come from the people who are actually doing the thing, because they know the role better. They can see things from a different perspective than you do. And sometimes, yes, the ideas are not great, but sometimes you find that they're, mind-blowing, and they could be the best thing that happened to a specific situation because you actually gave them that opportunity to think, to innovate, and to be part of the decision. Another thing, even with talking about skills development, is thinking about the fact that you're actually adding value not just to the individual but to your organization. And the big thing there is people understanding, what am I here to do and how can I make this role more fulfilling. So many people go into work to just clock in, do the bare minimum to actually have performed the tasks that they need to have performed that day, and then clock out, and that's it. Other people actually do carry their work with them at home, but it just becomes boxes that they're ticking. And because I've ticked particular boxes, I've actually done the work. But think of an environment that asks people to actually constantly grow their craft. And by adding value to the individuals, you're adding value to the organization. So, for instance, the different skills I talked about, actually find interest in that. And the organization doesn't necessarily need to pay for, let's say, for school if that's not in the budget, but they can be intentional about getting employees to sit down with a human resources manager or a human capital specialist and actually look at, how can I grow in my career? Because what we want is for people to move from the role they're in into another role. I honestly don't believe that people should be in roles for 40, 50 years and still be doing the same thing. They can be in an organization for that long, but to actually truly add value to an organization, people should be switching from role to role and growing those areas. So say for instance, I'll use my last job as an analogy. So we had a human resources department, a pastoral department. We also had a communications department, a Bible school department, a worship department. So if, let's say, I work in the Bible school and for instance, my role in the Bible school is I'm the marketing person. I could be in that role for 2 years. And if I never know what's happening in other departments, if there's never a clear picture of, what the different roles are in this department, I might not know that my gifts, my skills, my interests are actually catered for in a different department. And that's something that, a lot of people may not necessarily understand. Sometimes you might see things as, this is my role, I'm in this department, but you might find that you are best suited for a different department. That's something that a human capital specialist can actually do, to actually look at what are these people doing in this organization. So from our different interactions, from the different things we discuss with different employees, where best are they suited to be? So I know what role you're in, but what is the ideal role that you would flourish in the most in this organization? And, moving people from one department to the next, let's say, for instance, someone who is a worship coordinator happens to find themselves on camera, and you realize this person really is meant to be in front of a camera. They have great chemistry with the people on the screen. They're very animated. They are pretty much perfect for a role that involves that kind of thing. Where best can we put them? And you find that there's a media department. So maybe try them in the media department, and you might find this person actually flourishes more in that role than they ever did as a worship coordinator. Because sometimes we're actually wasting people's skills, wasting people's value, because we've never tried to picture them in another role. So you might find that someone really is not doing great in their role, but it might not be because they're not trying hard enough or they're not serious with their work. It might just be that they're misplaced, and we need to find the right place to put them. So that's something that can help to actually enhance the experience of employees in an organization, but it also helps the organization to get the best value for the work that they're putting into the people that work for them. So another thing I want to talk about, so we talked about grow or go, and now we're actually going to talk about grow to go. So one of the things that I think doesn't get enough attention in organizations is the fact that people are not meant to stay at an organization forever. That might be an obvious thing to say, but if we really truly dissect that, we realize that a lot of the times we, both on the employee side and also on the organization side or the manager side, we don't fully grasp the fact that people are in the organization to leave. Regardless of what that timeline looks like, it might be 2 years, it might be 20 years. Ultimately, people are leaving. So I'm going to break this down into two things. So the first thing is growing to go while you're still in the organization. So the fact that people are growing in the organization means that they are learning new skills, they are growing up, hopefully growing up in the ranks or moving from one department to the other, just finding their right fit. But because people are growing to grow, we as an organization need to plan in the sense that we realize that the person who is in this role right now is not going to be there forever. So what is our plan for when they're not there? So them going could be in the form of death. It could be in the form of them being poached by another organization. They might just get bored with their role and they decide to leave. Or we, might have a person who just says, you know what, I'm ready to retire. Either way, what have you put in place to ensure that when this person leaves the organization, we're not left in the lurch? And sudden deaths especially are what make people and organizations scramble. And now we're actually going to talk about where is this document and what's the password for this. So because that one of the things that I think doesn't primarily the person doing this organization never planned the fact that when they're not there. That's putting yourself in a very tough spot because these sudden things do happen. And it will cause human capital, you might ask. And lag back pretty much 3-4 months trying to now get another person in, training them, guessing this and that. And it actually, derails the progress that you already made and they decide as an organization. Or so actually needs to happen. Might have a person who just says, I'm ready to retire. As people are working in their roles, what have you put in place? There must be that when this an employee or leaves the organization that can do or not learning in the lurch. And what sudden in this deaths especially because employees should be able to organizations and now we're actually going to talk about this document and what's the password for this. So because that's one of the things that doesn't primarily the person in the organization. The organization now has to struggle to find information. The organization has now to struggle to figure out where is this document, where is that sudden things who does this. No, and it should actually be able to run smoothly. People should actually lag back pretty much trying to now actually go on leave training them because most times people go on and it actually but because they're the only ones who have the progress that you already get and they decide as an organization every single day. Or actually might have a person that just says, as people are working, we could avoid that problem if we actually go training. What have you put? And I know sometimes the fear is if I share this knowledge, if I train other people, the fact that people are going to take my job as an organization. Yeah, you're not meant to be in that role forever. That's not the plan. You should also be looking an obvious thing to say forward. But if we really the idea is to realize that a lot of the times we both on the employee side, it actually adds value to the organization or the manager side. Others when they make sure that things will still run fully, even when they're not around. The fact that people are in the other aspect of this that I was going to talk about is actually regardless of what that timeline looks like, it might be in terms of 2 years, it might be 20 years. Ultimately, people are leaving. So I'm going to break this down into two are looking to. So one more thing actually that I was going to mention about while you're still go in terms of just still being in the organization. It should actually be a good thing. Fact that for an organization, people are growing in the organization means to build people, they're learning new skills to the point they're growing up. Other organizations hopefully want those people in the ranks or moving from one department to the other, just finding their right grow into another position. But because people are growing, if I get to the end of that, I need to move to another organization and go and make a difference in another organization. I shouldn't necessarily stay where I am just because it's ideal. But we should actually be spreading this information and helping other organizations flourish and also giving an opportunity for fresh talent who might even bring a lot more innovation into your organization. So get people out so that others can come in and also make a difference. And then in terms of retirement, a lot of people don't actually have a plan for retirement. I know for me, personal experience is that my father was always so busy working, traveling, doing all sorts of things all around the country. And when he actually retired, you could tell that he had no idea what was next. And, he was not mentally prepared for just not being busy all the time. We spend so much of our time at work that we don't actually realize one day when that stops, it's a whole completely new adjustment. Have trainings about, managing yourself, managing your time, managing your adjustment once you have left formal employment. What are you going to do with your time? These are questions that we should be asking employees periodically, especially employees that are in their prime, employees that are older. That way we can actually help them have a more fulfilling life experience after they leave. I know so many people who've said, this person left the organization and within a few months they died. It's because they couldn't adjust. It was almost as if they lost meaning, that they have no purpose anymore. So these are things that the organization should be thinking about constantly. I'm just going to check. So I've just been handed by one of our producers a list of questions. And, these are actually just comments. So, people are learning so much. Thank you so much, Ali. Mapalo and Dory, thank you so much.
So
That
what
yes,
I'm
I
doing
do
that
facilitate workshops. I'm glad this has been informative for you. So how do you convince your organization that it is in their best interest to manage you up? I think the simplest way I would say that is the fact that you're growing is beneficial to your environment and your organization because you are their best resource. So if people stay small, if people are not growing, the organization won't grow. So you have to actually help them realize that the more that they equip their employees, the more that they equip you with knowledge that will help you be able to do things that are more cutting edge, things that are more current, it actually does benefit the organization because the organization is able to offer more services. It's able to, meet not just their bottom line, but actually go above and beyond the different targets that they have because the people in there are thinking constantly and growing. So it's always in the organization's best interest when their people grow, when their people learn new skills. And that I think it's invaluable because if the organization is doing the same thing, so for instance, if we're still making newspapers and we believe that this is the only thing we can do, a 20-year-old might come in and say, hey, why don't we have an online paper? Then, yeah, if there's no one who can come in with fresh ideas, it's not ever going to work. And the organization might find that it crumbles within a few months because of everybody going online. So yeah, I think that could be an answer to your question. Yeah. So thank you so much for everyone who tuned in, and I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next one.
And cut. She has. She already she can. She asked the question, then she had. They're not questions. They're comments. And the questions were there. It's a wrap, guys.
No, I did actually answer the questions.
She answered the question. She closed with one of the questions. You have closed the stream?
That was fun.
But I feel you listening, eh? That's delayed. If she hurries, she can catch the last of the end of her stream. If you hurry, you can catch the end of the stream.
Where is it?
She says a minute behind, right?
Ah, jeez.
Sorry, msana kanisa kama
She had stopped talking. I was waiting for the thing, so like the transition.
Yes.
A good 10 seconds.
Sorry, guys.
Because I didn't know if you had stopped the stream or not.
Great job, team. She actually